At Thanksgiving dinner, my husband stood up and said, "I toast to Linda, the woman stupid enough to marry me so I could get my green card." The room went silent. My daughter dropped her fork. "First, let me thank you for watching Letters to Helen. Please subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching. My name is Linda, and I'm 58 years old. 3 years ago, I thought I'd found love again after losing my husband of 26 years to cancer. I met Victor on a dating app. He was 35, charming, and from Romania. He had dark hair, kind eyes, and spoke with an accent that made my heart skip. He called me Beautiful Linda and said he'd been searching his whole life for someone like me. I should have known something was wrong when he proposed after only 4 months. But I was lonely. My children had their own lives, and the house felt too big, too quiet. Victor filled that silence with laughter and promises of adventures we'd take together. He'd hold my hands and tell me about the life we'd build in America. Our America. The wedding was small, just family and a few close friends. Victor seemed nervous, but I thought it was because English wasn't his first language and he was meeting everyone at once. My daughter Sarah pulled me aside that day and whispered, "Mom, are you sure about this?" I told her love doesn't follow timelines, and at my age, I couldn't afford to wait for perfect timing. That first year of marriage felt like a fairy tale. Victor was attentive, always helping around the house, always asking about my day. But there were moments, tiny cracks I chose to ignore, like how he'd disappear for hours to handle paperwork, or how his phone was always face down during dinner. When I asked about his family back in Romania, he changed the subject quickly, saying they were complicated people who wouldn't understand our love. The immigration paperwork began immediately. Victor needed me to sign documents, attend interviews, provide financial statements, proving I could support him. The lawyer's fees alone cost me $8,000. Then came the application fees, the medical exams, the translation services, another $7,000. I dipped into my retirement savings, telling myself it was an investment in our future together. Victor became obsessed with the green card process. He checked the mailbox 3 times a day, refreshed the immigration website constantly, and grow frustrated when things moved slowly. "This system is broken, Linda," he'd say, pacing our kitchen. "They don't understand that we're real, that we love each other." 6 months into our marriage, I started noticing changes in Victor's behavior. The man who once brought me flowers every Friday suddenly seemed distracted, always on his phone texting in Romanian. When I asked who he was talking to, he'd say it was his cousin helping with some family business back home. One evening, I accidentally saw his phone screen when a message popped up. It was in English, from someone named Maria. "How much longer do you have to pretend with the old lady?" My stomach dropped, but when I confronted Victor, he laughed it off. "Maria is crazy, Linda. She's jealous that I found happiness in America. You know how women can be." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. At 58, starting over felt impossible, and Victor still held me every night, still called me beautiful. But the doubt had planted its seed. The immigration interviews were scheduled for that fall. Victor coached me for hours on what to say, how to act, what stories to tell about our relationship. "We need to convince them we're real," he'd say, drilling me with practice questions. "Tell them about the first time I cooked for you. Tell them about the trip we took to the mountains. Make them believe in our love." It struck me as odd that he needed to coach me to talk about my own marriage. Shouldn't the truth be enough? But I practiced anyway, memorizing the details of our relationship like lines in a play. During this time, Victor's behavior became increasingly strange. He'd disappear for entire afternoons, claiming he was at the library studying English. But his English never seemed to improve. He'd come home smelling like cigarettes and perfume, explanations ready before I could ask questions. I was helping Dimitri move apartments, or I was at the mechanic. You know how those places smell. My daughter Sarah visited more frequently, watching Victor with suspicious eyes. She'd wait until he left the room, then whisper, "Mom, something's not right about him. Have you looked into his background?" I'd defend my husband, but her words echoed in my mind during sleepless nights. The worst part was how Victor had started treating our intimate moments like obligations. The passion had drained from his kisses, replaced by mechanical duty. When I tried to talk about it, he'd blame stress from the immigration process. "Once I get my papers, Linda, everything will be better. I'll be the husband you deserve." But deep down, a voice I'd been suppressing grew louder each day. What if I was just a means to an end? What if Sarah was right? What if the man I'd married, The man I'd given my heart and my savings to was playing a role, waiting for his green card to drop the act. By our first anniversary, Victor had become a stranger living in my house. The loving words continued, but they felt rehearsed, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized but no longer believed in. He'd tell me he loved me while scrolling through his phone, kiss me goodbye while his mind was clearly somewhere else. The financial demands never stopped. Beyond the immigration fees, Victor always had emergencies. His cousin in Romania needed money for medical bills, $500. The car needed repairs that somehow cost $800, even though I never saw any work done. His English classes required special books, another $200. Each request came with tears in his eyes and promises that this would be the last time. I found myself lying to my children about our expenses. When Sarah asked why I'd canceled our annual family vacation, I made up excuses about wanting to stay home, about preferring quiet holidays. The truth was, my savings were draining faster than I could replenish them. Victor had access to my checking account. For emergencies, Linda, so I can help with household expenses. But money only seemed to flow out, never in. One particularly difficult evening, I discovered Victor on the phone speaking rapid Romanian, his voice angry and frustrated. When he saw me, he switched to English. Yes, I understand. I will handle it. After hanging up, he was quiet for hours. When I asked what was wrong, he said his mother was sick and needed surgery. The cost? $3,000. I wanted to suggest flying to Romania to help, to meet his family, to be there during this difficult time. But Victor quickly shut down the idea. My family is very traditional, Linda. They wouldn't understand our marriage, the age difference. It would cause more problems. The best way to help is to send money. That night, as Victor slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling wondering when I'd become someone who accepted excuses without question, who handed over money without verification, who lived with a man she no longer recognized. The woman I used to be, confident, independent, careful with her heart and her money, felt like a stranger. The green card interview was scheduled for November, just weeks before Thanksgiving. Victor's anxiety reached new heights. He'd pace the house muttering in Romanian, snap at me over minor things, then apologize with tears and promises. I'm sorry, beautiful Linda. This process is making me crazy. Once it's over, once I'm legal, we can finally start our real life together. But what if this was our real life? What if the charming man I'd fallen in love with had been the performance, and this anxious, distant stranger was who Victor really was? 3 weeks before our immigration interview, I made a decision that would change everything. While Victor was out on one of his mysterious errands, I sat down at my computer and began investigating the man I'd married. I started with social media. Victor claimed he rarely used Facebook or Instagram, that technology wasn't his thing. But a simple search revealed multiple accounts under variations of his name. What I found made my hands shake. Photos of Victor with other women, young, older, all appearing to be American. In one photo, he was kissing a blonde woman who looked to be in her 40s. The caption, in English, read, "With my beautiful wife Sarah in Las Vegas." Sarah, my daughter's name. I scrolled further back, my heart pounding. There was Victor with a brunette woman, both wearing wedding rings, standing in front of a courthouse. The date stamp showed it was taken just 2 years before I met him. The woman looked happy, radiant. Victor's expression was the same one he'd worn on our wedding day. Practiced perfection. My hands trembling, I created a fake social media account and began reaching out to these women. Within hours, I received a response from the blonde. Her name was actually Jennifer, and her story was eerily familiar. She'd met Victor on a dating site, had a whirlwind romance, married quickly, and spent thousands on his immigration process. The marriage lasted exactly 2 years, long enough for Victor to get his conditional green card, then disappear. He's probably using a different name now, Jennifer wrote. The Victor I married claimed to be from Ukraine, not Romania. Check public records for multiple marriage licenses. This man is professional. The brunette woman's story was even more devastating. Maria Elena had been married to Victor for 3 years, had sponsored him for permanent residency, only to discover he was simultaneously married to another woman in a different state. He travels between cities. Linda. He targets divorced or widowed women with savings and good hearts. I lost everything. My money, my trust, nearly my sanity. That evening, when Victor returned home with grocery bags and his usual smile, I watched him differently. Every gesture, every word, every kiss felt like a performance I was finally seeing through. He noticed my quietness. "You seem upset, beautiful Linda. Is everything okay?" "Just tired," I replied, testing his reaction. "I've been thinking about the interview next week. What if they ask about your previous relationships?" Victor's face remained perfectly calm, but I caught a micro-expression, a brief flash of panic before his smile returned. "What previous relationships? You're the only woman who matters, Linda. You're my first real love." The lies rolled off his tongue so easily, so naturally. How many other women had he told they were his first real love? How many other beautiful Lindas had there been? Over the next 10 days, I became a detective in my own home. While Victor went about his daily routines, I gathered evidence of the man I'd really married. I photographed documents he kept in his dresser drawer, documents I'd never been allowed to see. Multiple social security cards, driver's licenses from different states, even a passport with a different first name. I hired a private investigator, paying $500 I told Victor was for car repairs. The report came back within a week, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Victor Petrov, the name he'd married me under, had been married to at least 4 other American women in the past 8 years. Currently, 2 of those marriages had never been officially dissolved. I wasn't just married to a con man, I was married to a bigamist. The investigator found more. Victor had multiple apartments across 3 states, each supported by a different wife. He traveled between them in a rotation, spending just enough time with each woman to maintain the illusion of marriage while maximizing his financial gain. The green card applications were real, but Victor was hedging his bets. If one wife discovered the truth, he had backups. Armed with this information, I made copies of everything and contacted an attorney specializing in immigration fraud. The lawyer, Mrs. Rodriguez, listened to my story with a mixture of sympathy and professional interest. "Mrs. Wilson, what you're describing is a sophisticated marriage fraud operation. Victor is using multiple women to secure legal status, which is a federal crime. However, you're also a victim here. We need to document everything and contact immigration authorities immediately." The hardest part was maintaining normalcy at home. Victor had no idea I knew the truth. He continued his loving husband act, bringing me coffee in the morning, complimenting my cooking, talking about our future together. But now I heard the lies in every word. "After I get my green card, Linda, maybe we can visit Romania together. I want to show you where I grew up." "That sounds wonderful," I'd respond, knowing he'd probably told the same lie to Jennifer and Maria Elena, and whoever else had fallen for his charm. 2 nights before Thanksgiving, Victor received a phone call that made him pace anxiously around the house. He spoke in rapid Romanian, his voice frustrated and angry. After hanging up, he was quiet for the rest of the evening. When I asked what was wrong, he said work had been stressful lately. Work. Another lie. Victor didn't have a job. He'd been living off my savings for over a year. That night, as I lay in bed listening to Victor's breathing, I made my final decision. Thanksgiving dinner would be the perfect opportunity. My entire family would be there, witnesses to whatever I decided to do. The morning of Thanksgiving, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. For months, I'd been living in confusion and doubt, but now that I knew the truth, everything felt clear. Victor was still sleeping beside me, one arm draped possessively over my waist, a gesture that once felt loving, but now felt like ownership. I slipped out of bed quietly and made coffee, my mind running through the plan I'd developed over sleepless nights. My daughter Sarah would be arriving at noon with her husband and 2 children. My son Michael was driving up from Atlanta with his fiancée. My sister Margaret always came early to help with cooking. By 2 o'clock, everyone who mattered to me would be gathered around my dining room table. Victor emerged from the bedroom around 9, hair messy, wearing the pajamas I'd bought him last Christmas. "Good morning, beautiful Linda," he said, kissing my cheek with practiced affection. "What can I help you with today?" "Everything's under control," I replied. And for the first time in months, I meant it. He offered to go to the store for last-minute items, but I declined. I wanted him here today. I needed him here. Victor seemed puzzled by my cheerful mood. I'd been distant for weeks, and suddenly I was humming while preparing turkey, smiling when he made jokes, acting like the loving wife he'd been pretending I was. Sarah arrived first, as always punctual and carrying a covered dish of her famous sweet potato casserole. She hugged me tightly, then gave Victor a polite nod. My daughter had never warmed to him, and now I understood why. Women have intuition about these things. "You look good, Mom," Sarah whispered when Victor went to get drinks. "Relaxed. I haven't seen you this calm in months." "I feel good," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. "Really good." Michael arrived with his fiancée Emma, a sweet girl who worked as a nurse. Margaret came bustling in with homemade rolls and her usual commentary about everything. Soon, the house was filled with the warm chaos of family, children running around, adults catching up, the kitchen alive with conversation and laughter. Victor played his role perfectly. He complimented everyone's cooking, asked Michael about his job, listened patiently to Margaret's stories about her neighbors. To anyone watching, he seemed like a devoted stepfather and son-in-law, grateful to be included in our family traditions. But I watched him differently now. I saw how he positioned himself near the wine, drinking more than usual. I noticed how he kept checking his phone, probably coordinating with his other wives about their own Thanksgiving performances. I observed how he studied my family members like he was cataloging information for future use. As we gathered around the dinner table at 3 o'clock, Victor raised his wine glass, his third glass I'd been counting. "I want to make a toast," Victor announced, his Romanian accent slightly thicker after the wine. The table quieted, forks pausing midair, all eyes turning toward my husband. Sarah looked uncomfortable. Michael exchanged glances with Emma. My sister Margaret raised her eyebrows. She'd never liked Victor, though she'd been too polite to say so directly. The children, my beautiful grandchildren, continued eating their turkey and mashed potatoes, oblivious to the tension suddenly filling the room. Victor stood unsteadily, raising his wine glass higher. His dark eyes were glassy, and there was something different in his expression, a recklessness I'd never seen before. Later, I would wonder if this moment had been building inside him for months, the pressure of maintaining multiple lies finally becoming too much to bear. "I want to toast to Linda," he began, and my heart started pounding. "My wonderful, generous, beautiful Linda." Sarah's fork clinked against her plate as she set it down. Michael leaned forward slightly, sensing something was wrong. Margaret's mouth formed a thin line of disapproval. "Linda is such a good woman," Victor continued, swaying slightly. "So trusting, so kind, so—" He paused, searching for words. "So willing to help a man achieve his dreams in America." The room was completely silent now, except for the sound of my 6-year-old grandson chewing his dinner roll. "You see," Victor's voice grew louder, more confident, "Linda married me because she believed in love. But I married Linda because I needed a green card. And you know what? It worked." He laughed. Actually laughed. While my family sat frozen in shock, Sarah's face went pale. Michael's jaw dropped. Margaret gasped audibly. Emma reached under the table to squeeze Michael's hand. "Victor," I said quietly, but he wasn't finished. "So I toast to Linda, the woman stupid enough to marry me for a green card." He raised his glass triumphantly, wine sloshing over the rim onto my grandmother's lace tablecloth. "And to all of you, for welcoming a stranger into your family without asking too many questions." The silence that followed was deafening. My grandson looked up from his plate, confused by the sudden quiet. My granddaughter asked, "Mommy, why is everyone so quiet?" Sarah found her voice first. "Victor, what are you saying?" He turned toward her, still grinning with wine-loosened honesty. "I'm saying your mother is a very generous woman who paid $15,000 for my American dream. Nothing more, nothing less." Michael started to stand, his face red with anger, but I held up my hand. Everyone looked at me expectantly, waiting for my reaction to my husband's cruel confession. I smiled. That's when I knew I had them exactly where I wanted them. If this twist shocked you, tap-like, it might save another woman from a romance scam. I set down my fork calmly, dabbed my mouth with my napkin, and looked around the table at my family's shocked faces. Victor was still standing, wine glass in hand, grinning like he'd just told the world's funniest joke instead of destroying what everyone believed was my marriage. "Thank you for that toast, Victor," I said, my voice steady and clear. It was very illuminating. Victor's grin faltered slightly. Something in my tone must have registered through his wine-induced confidence. "Now I'd like to make a toast of my own." I stood slowly, reaching for my water glass. The room remained silent, my family watching with a mixture of confusion and concern. My daughter Sarah looked like she might cry or throw something at Victor, possibly both. I want to toast to truth, I began, making eye contact with each person around the table. To the power of investigation, to women who refuse to be victims, and to the beautiful thing that happens when a con man thinks he's smarter than everyone else. Victor's smile disappeared completely. He set his wine glass down with shaking hands. You see, Victor here thinks he played me perfectly. He thinks I'm just another lonely widow who fell for his charm and opened her wallet. He thinks I'm stupid enough, those were your words, weren't they, Victor, to marry someone for a green card without knowing it. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved screenshots of his social media profiles with other women. But what Victor doesn't know is that I've spent the last 3 weeks learning about his other wives. The word wives, plural, sent a ripple of shock around the table. Margaret actually gasped. Michael stood up completely now, his hands clenched into fists. That's right, I continued, showing the photos to my family. Victor has been married to at least 4 other women. Jennifer in Nevada, Maria Elena in California, Patricia in Florida, all of them American citizens. All of them financially stable, all of them told they were his first real love. Victor's face had gone completely white. Linda, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I understand that you've been running a marriage fraud operation across multiple states. I understand that you have apartments in 3 different cities, paid for by 3 different wives. I understand that the cousin in Romania who needed medical money was actually your bookie in Las Vegas. Sarah found her voice. Mom, how long have you known? 3 weeks, I replied. Ever since I hired a private investigator and discovered that my husband, Victor Petrov, is also Victor Marinescu in Nevada and Victor Popescu in California. Apparently, changing last names helps keep the wives from finding each other. Victor tried to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I walked to the dining room sideboard where I'd placed a manila envelope before dinner. Victor's eyes followed my movements like a trapped animal watching its predator. My family remained silent, hanging on every word of this revelation that was reshaping everything they thought they knew about the last 2 years of my life. Victor, do you remember when you asked me to organize our important papers last month? You said you wanted everything in one place for the immigration interview. I opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of documents. Well, I did organize them, very thoroughly. I spread the papers across the table, pushing aside plates and serving dishes, bank statements, wire transfer receipts, copies of marriage licenses, driver's licenses from different states, even photos I'd printed from his various social media accounts. Here's a copy of your marriage license to Jennifer Morrison in Las Vegas, dated 18 months before we met. I placed it in front of Victor, who wouldn't look down at it. And here's your marriage to Maria Elena Gonzalez in San Diego, which apparently never ended. Michael leaned over to examine the documents, his face growing darker with each piece of evidence. Mom, this is... He trailed off, unable to find words. Criminal, Sarah finished. This is criminal fraud. Yes, it is, I agreed, but it gets better. Victor, would you like to explain to my family how you've been collecting Social Security disability payments under 3 different names? Or should I show them the bank statements? Victor finally found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. Linda, please. Please what? Please continue pretending I don't know that the English classes you attend twice a week are actually visits to your apartment across town, where you live with Patricia Williams, wife number 4. Please keep believing that the medical emergency money I sent to Romania actually went to pay for your gambling debts. I pulled out a final document, a letter with an official government seal. This is a notice I received yesterday from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're very interested in meeting with you, Victor. Apparently, marriage fraud is a federal crime with a penalty of up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Victor slumped back into his chair, all the fight gone out of him. His carefully constructed persona was crumbling in real time, and everyone at my Thanksgiving table was witnessing it. But here's the best part, I continued, allowing myself a small smile. The immigration interview we were supposed to attend next week, I canceled it 2 weeks ago. You see, I also contacted your other wives. Turns out, when women compare notes, patterns emerge. Margaret broke the silence. Linda, honey, what are you going to do? I looked around the table at my family. My real family, the people who actually loved me. What am I going to do? I repeated Margaret's question, looking directly at Victor, who sat hunched in his chair like a deflated balloon. I'm going to do what I should have done months ago. I'm going to stop being a victim. I walked back to the sideboard and retrieved another document, one Victor hadn't seen yet. This morning, before you all arrived, I filed for an emergency divorce. My attorney has already submitted all evidence of marriage fraud to the appropriate federal authorities. I placed the divorce papers in front of Victor. You have 30 days to vacate my house and exactly 0 days to access any of my financial accounts, which I've already frozen. Victor looked up at me with desperate eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Linda, you don't understand. I do love you. The other marriages, they were… Stop. My voice was firm. Do not insult my intelligence any further. I've heard your lies for 22 months. I've supported your lies with my savings, my home, my heart, but I refuse to listen to one more word from your mouth. Sarah stood up and walked around the table to hug me. Mom, I'm so proud of you. I was so worried, but I didn't know how to… I know, honey. You tried to warn me. Women always try to warn each other, don't we? But sometimes we have to learn lessons the hard way. Michael was studying the legal documents. Mom, how much money did he take? Enough, I replied, but not everything. I stopped him before he could get to my retirement accounts or the house, and my attorney says there's a good chance we can recover some of it through the criminal restitution process. Emma, who had been quiet throughout this entire revelation, finally spoke. Mrs. Wilson, how did you stay so calm? How did you plan all this without him knowing? Practice, I said simply. When someone lies to you for 2 years, you become very good at hiding your true feelings. The difference is, I was hiding them to protect myself, not to hurt others. Victor tried one last desperate plea. The other women, Linda, they meant nothing. You're different. I'm done, I interrupted. Margaret, would you help me clear the table? Sarah, could you pack Victor a bag? Just one bag. Everything else stays here until the lawyers sort it out. As my family sprang into action, Victor sat motionless, staring at the divorce papers. The man who had been so confident, so charming, so sure of his ability to manipulate me, now looked like exactly what he was, a common criminal who had finally been caught. Victor, I said quietly, while my family bustled around us, I want you to know something. He looked up hopefully, as if I might offer him one last chance. I want you to know that you didn't break me, I said, my voice steady and clear. You took my money. You lied to me. You used me. But you didn't break me. In fact, you made me stronger. Victor's shoulders sagged further. He mumbled something in Romanian that I didn't understand and didn't care to translate. Within an hour, my family had efficiently packed one suitcase with Victor's belongings. I watched from the kitchen window as Michael carried the bag to Victor's car. A car I now realized had probably been purchased with another wife's money. Sarah stood beside me, her arm around my waist. What happens next, Mom? Next, we finish our Thanksgiving dinner, I said. We have pumpkin pie and coffee, we watch football, we let the kids play in the backyard. We act like a normal family on a normal holiday, because that's exactly what we are. Victor appeared in the kitchen doorway, car keys in his hand. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Linda, where am I supposed to go? I honestly don't care. Victor, you have 3 other wives and 3 other apartments. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're very resourceful. He tried once more. The immigration interview. There is no immigration interview. I told you, I canceled it. And I've informed ICE that you're married to multiple women simultaneously. Your green card dreams are over. After Victor left, my family and I did exactly what I'd promised. We returned to the dining room, cleared away the evidence of fraud and deception, and finished our Thanksgiving meal. The children asked where Victor had gone, and we told them he'd had to leave for work. Not entirely a lie, since his work was apparently conning women. As evening fell and my family prepared to leave, Margaret pulled me aside. Linda, are you really okay? This has to be devastating. I considered her question carefully. You know what's strange? I feel relieved. For months, I've been living with this nagging feeling that something was wrong, that I was missing something important. Now I know I wasn't paranoid or overly suspicious. I was right to trust my instincts. Sarah hugged me goodbye at the door. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't push harder when I suspected something. Don't apologize, honey. I needed to learn this lesson myself. Besides, look how it turned out. I discovered I'm much stronger and smarter than I gave myself credit for. That night, alone in my house for the first time in almost 2 years, I made a cup of tea and sat in my favorite chair. The silence that had once felt so oppressive now felt peaceful. I wasn't a lonely widow who'd been taken advantage of. I was a woman who'd faced deception head-on and won. 6 months have passed since that Thanksgiving dinner, and my life has transformed in ways I never expected. The divorce was finalized in February. Victor was arrested in March on federal charges of marriage fraud and bigamy. He's currently serving 18 months in federal prison and will be deported upon release. The investigation revealed even more victims than I'd initially discovered. Victor had been running his scheme for over a decade, targeting women through dating websites and social media. The FBI estimates he stole nearly $200,000 from various wives across 7 states. I wasn't his first victim, but I was determined to be among his last. I did recover some of my money through the criminal restitution process, though not all of it. The financial loss stung, but it taught me valuable lessons about protecting my assets and trusting my instincts. I've since taken a financial planning course and opened new accounts with better safeguards. More importantly, I've discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed. The woman who married Victor was lonely and vulnerable, willing to ignore red flags because she was afraid of being alone. The woman who exposed Victor is confident and self-reliant, comfortable with solitude because she's learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. I've started volunteering with a local organization that helps victims navigate romance scams and green card marriage fraud. Many of these women are my age, and they often feel ashamed that they fell for these schemes. I tell them what I wish someone had told me. Being trusting doesn't make you stupid. Being kind doesn't make you weak. Being victimized doesn't make you a victim unless you choose to remain one. My relationship with my children has grown stronger through this experience. Sarah and Michael now understand that their mother is more resilient than they realized. They've stopped treating me like I need protection and started treating me like the capable woman I've always been. I'm dating again, carefully, slowly, with full background checks and no joint bank accounts until someone has earned years of trust. But I'm not afraid of love. Victor taught me to be cautious, but he didn't teach me to be cynical. There's a difference between wisdom and fear. In my bedroom, I keep a small planner where I've crossed out the dates that belong to Victor. 22 months of my life marked through with red ink. Next to it sits my late husband's photo, no longer watching over deception, but witnessing my strength. That Thanksgiving dinner changed my life, but not in the way Victor intended. He thought his confession would be his moment of triumph, proof of how cleverly he'd manipulated me. Instead, it became the moment I reclaimed my power and my voice. He wanted a visa. I wanted the truth. Only one of us got what we came for. If you've ever felt this way, you know my pain. Subscribe and stay with me. Helen's letters are for us.